All right. So I'm Craig. I'm Bracken's counterpart here at Pursuit Wrestling, Ohio. Um, I'm going to keep this video more like topic based on the holdback issue. Won't really get into the slander and the crap that guys like Christian put out there, questioning character and motive and all that. It's irrelevant. I think it's virtue signaling tactics by him and some others. So good for them. At the end of the day, the holdback here. This isn't controversial, and it's a thing that there's a lot of people that are in the space, whether it be athletics and wrestling or just in general, have a good understanding of. And in running this club, we're a newer club too, 4 years old, and just in the area we're in, we have a ton of new wrestlers, and so there's a lot of people that aren't in the know, don't have parents that wrestled or were in athletics. So, we call it for first generation wrestlers. And so they don't have that benefit or that experience of the layout and the systems in place involved in eligibility in high school sports, flat out. So they don't. The interesting thing of the critics of this is, they're trying to ride this high horse for whatever reason and say that, oh, well, hey, we know that a lot of our audience gets it, so we don't want to sound ignorant and say we're anti-holdback. We're pro-holdback too. But what did these guys do? Well, they were offensive, and they're overstepping. It's not their place to have that discussion or say that out in the open. And we push back on that. Quite frankly, again, we think that that's a virtue signal move. I understand that there's private discussions. We use common sense on that stuff. Obviously, there's things that you don't talk about out in the open. But what we think on this topic, specifically for the holdback year, the rule of the situation is that a holdback will generally vastly benefit the kid that has that holdback year, not just in wrestling, but in the other areas of life. And we think that the exception is that it'll be detrimental to that kid. For some reason, people are taking this stance, this high ground of, oh, hey, the rule is that a holdback hurts kids in all these other areas of their lives, and the benefit is marginal, can be marginal from the athletic perspective. So it's just backwards. If the dynamic of this was that the exception is it's going to help someone if we talk about it, it's like it'll help very few, and the rule was that it's going to hurt a lot of different people, sure, you know what, maybe that's a closed door discussion, maybe that's something that's more private, but it's the inverse. And quite frankly, like, we're sick of seeing kids and parents in here dedicate years of their lives, sweaty gyms, blood, sweat, and tears in practice, tons of resources and time, sacrificing relationships, putting everything into this sport because we know it's a lifestyle, and then finding out after they enroll in high school, oh shoot, what the heck, like, I'm a freshman, why are all these kids more developed than me? I don't understand it. What the heck? Wait, that kid's a year and a half older than I am? That doesn't make any sense. We're in the same grade. And so we want to shed light on it, quite frankly, fundamentally, and we've got a post about this. So we're gonna take a regimented and articulated way. That sounds kind of ironic. I know it's not really my counterpart Bracken's style. He's a little bit more from the hip, if you will. But that's okay. We're going to follow up with this and give a lot of good context on the issue and why it shouldn't be taboo. So the things that are at play with this discussion and this topic, and the things that we have to understand is that, again, first, the rule is that a holdback year will benefit the vast majority of kids that take one. Is it absolute? Probably pretty close to it, but we're not going to say never, okay? So there could be some cases where it could be detrimental. But that is the exception. So the rule, it's going to help a ton of people. The exception, it could be detrimental. The second piece of this is it's understanding how people are making their decisions. And when you're in the know and you understand how the system works, you're going to make your decision differently than the people that aren't. And here's the facts on this. People are going to make their decision, competitive people especially, on the limit. We see that. History proves it. Okay, so when you're doing something, you're not going to try to fall somewhere in the range and in the middle and at the bottom end. You're going to look at what's the limit, you're going to find it, and you're going to try and get as close to it as possible. All right, so when we take a step back and we say, hey, when should I start my kid in school? Generally speaking, what's recommended? You start your kid in kindergarten at 5 years old. That puts them at around 18-ish when they graduate, 17, 18-ish when they graduate as a senior in high school. Okay, that's the middle ground, right? What's the limit? So, and again, competitive people. There's a lot of people out there, the people that are in the know on this that have done it. They understand that the limit is 7 years old. In most of the cases. So like in Ohio, in high school, the OHSAA, you can't compete while 20. So basically, as long as you're not 20 years old on the day that you're competing, you're good to go. So you can go all the way up to 19 years old in 364 days. When you click over into 20, if you are competing, not allowed. That's when your eligibility is going to end. Okay, so it's basically 2 years ahead of the recommendation is the limit in most of the cases here. Competitive people are planning off that limit. They're not planning on that recommendation. So the 5-year-old kindergarten start, it's just not relevant. It's, hey, 7. If it can't be 7 and it falls that I turn that not on the favorable side of that August 1st, then they're 6. And that's the way it is. Okay? We have to accept that. Now, does it mean you need to do a holdback? No, it doesn't mean you need to do a holdback. Should you do a holdback? Yes, you should. You should. And generally speaking, it's largely beneficial. That's our opinion on it. Can we force parents to do anything? Excuse me. No, we don't. Can we recommend it? Absolutely. And if we don't, it's like that's the whole thing of this whole like virtue signaling. Oh, it's not your place. You shouldn't be talking about this. It's a private discussion. Well, then who's going to talk to that parent and that kid about it? And a lot of the times that discussion doesn't happen. Again, for some reason, this is taboo. It's, you act like because you talk about a holdback here that you're greatly overstepping and you're going to ruin a kid's life when actually it's going to be the opposite, vastly more than likely. And so it puts you in this situation where, we don't have a problem about talking about it and out in the open too. We wanted to take a second too to add some context to this video on that note. It's like, hey, that's not something you should be talking about a kid. Obviously, again, in the video, it's like a huddle up at practice and our kids. We know a lot of rooms don't have a spectator section, but I'm actually sitting in ours. And so we're going to kind of pan around our room here real quick. This is the viewing area. We've got like 45 seats and standing room for the parents in our facility. Walking out over onto the mats here, this is where all the damage was done. And all the preaching is done, I guess. And this is the room, all right? All right, so at the end of the day, here's the thing. This is a topic that needs to be talked about. There's a lot of kids and parents who don't know about a holdback year, and it's just this complete, really demonized thing and a foreign idea that is going to be really detrimental to that kid potentially. And so they deserve to be informed. It's not an overstep or an overreach for us to generate that conversation. Again, we're not forcing anyone to do anything. The parents are very involved in all the conversations. You saw that they're sitting here and they're involved in it with their kids 30 feet away. We don't overly push it, but where are we at with it? We recommend it. And again, we have different styles. Bracken, my counterpart, we can be a yin and yang. There's a reason that I'm doing this long form content and kind of explaining the rationale behind this. A little bit more my style and more my suit. These kids love Bracken. Bracken loves these kids, loves these families, and it is just so wrong and so backwards to try to character assassinate anything about him, or trying to really tap into things that are completely irrelevant to even this topic in the name of virtue signaling. So don't respect that. You know who you are. Maybe we'll put out some content calling out some of those practices a little bit later. I'm not exactly sure. The important part about this is that we get the facts out there. We've got a blog that's going up. It's going to, right now, explain the fundamental basics of this holdback decision and the thought process that we have and we think you should have when you're making this decision. Whether you do decide to do it or not, have the knowledge, know what you're up against, and that's where it begins and ends with us. Yeah, cool.